A first-year flight instructor in America makes $40,000 a year. A senior captain at Delta makes $600,000. They fly the same sky, but the distance between those two seats takes 20 years, $120,000 in debt, and a seniority number that can erase everything you've built overnight. This is every level of a commercial pilot. Level 1. The student. You're 19 and you just passed a medical exam and a written test. The FAA sends you a piece of paper that says Student Pilot Certificate. It is not a license. It is permission to sit in an airplane with someone who has one. Your flight school is a small building next to a grass strip with a faded windsock and 3 Cessna 172s parked on cracked asphalt. The airplane you're renting costs $180 an hour. Your instructor costs $60 on top of that. Every minute the engine is running, you're burning money. The first 10 hours are humbling. You can't hold altitude and heading at the same time. You pull back on the yoke and the nose pitches up too far, and your instructor calmly pushes it back down and says, "Smaller inputs," for the 4th time today. Then one morning, hour 22, maybe 25, your instructor tells you to pull over to the ramp. He unbuckles, opens the door, and gets out. He says, "Do 3 laps," and closes the door. The right seat is empty. It has never been empty. You push the throttle in, and the Cessna jumps off the ground faster than it ever has. 170 pounds lighter without your instructor, it climbs quicker. You catch yourself turning to say something, and there's nobody there. 3 laps, 3 landings. When you taxi back, your instructor pulls out a pair of scissors and cuts the back of your shirt off. It goes on the wall of the flight school with your name in Sharpie. Every pilot you will ever meet remembers this day. You pass the private pilot check ride at 67 hours. 25% of people fail on the first try. You are now allowed to fly yourself and your friends anywhere in the country in good weather. You are not allowed to be paid for it. What follows is 18 months of ratings and a kind of financial erosion that nobody warns you about. Level 2. The grind. Instrument rating, $12,000. Commercial pilot license, $20,000. Multi-engine rating, certified flight instructor certificate, written tests, oral exams, check rides. Each one costs money you don't have. The instrument rating is where most people discover whether they actually want this career. You fly under a hood that blocks everything outside the cockpit. Your only references are 6-round dials. Your body will tell you the airplane is turning left when it's perfectly level. The inner ear creates something called the leans, a physical sensation so convincing that pilots have flown into the ground believing they were wings level. It kills more pilots than engine failures. By the time you finish all the ratings, you've spent somewhere between $80,000 and $120,000. You have about 250 flight hours. A regional airline requires 1,500. And there is exactly one realistic way to close that gap. You become a flight instructor making $42 an hour, but only when the engine is running. Ground school? Unpaid. Rain days when your students cancel? Zero. Annual income? About $40,000. You are 23 years old, $90,000 in debt, teaching a scared 17-year-old how to recover from a stall in the same Cessna. The 1,500-hour rule exists because of Colgan Air Flight 3407. In 2009, a regional plane stalled on approach to Buffalo, and the captain pulled back on the yoke instead of pushing forward. 50 people died. Congress quadrupled the minimum hours, from 500 to 1,500. The captain of that flight had 3,379 hours. So you teach stall recovery 400 times. You watch the Hobbs meter tick. You update your logbook every night. And on the evening you write 1500.0 in the total time column, you close the book and start filling out applications. It has been 2 years since you graduated. You have spent over $100,000. You have not yet been paid to carry a single passenger. Level 3. Regional First Officer. You get the call from a regional airline. Endeavor or PSA or SkyWest. The signing bonus is $50,000. 10 years ago, the first year pay was $21,000. Right now, it's $108,000. Thank the pilot shortage. 5 weeks in a training center, new airplane, the Embraer E175 or the Bombardier CRJ 900. Glass cockpit, jet engines, pressurized cabin. Everything is faster, heavier, and less forgiving than the Cessna. You pass the type rating check ride. They hand you a uniform. White shirt, dark tie, 2 black stripes on the epaulets. 2 stripes means first officer. You are 25 years old. Your first base is wherever they need you. You requested Charlotte. They gave you Newark. You can't afford an apartment in Newark, so you rent a bunk in a crash pad. A 2-bedroom apartment shared with 11 other pilots. $200 a month. The guy who sleeps in your bed during the day is a captain on the opposite schedule. You know him by the protein bar wrappers he leaves on the nightstand. You are on reserve. The airline calls when they need you. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whenever a pilot calls in sick. You have 90 minutes to be at the airport. You don't know what city you'll sleep in tonight. A typical trip. Report at 5:30 a.m., fly 4 legs across the East Coast. 9 hours on duty. Van to the hotel. Alarm for 4:45 a.m. Do it again. The CRJ cockpit is so narrow your knees press against the center console. You are home maybe 15 nights a month. Your friends have weekends. Somewhere around month 18, you start updating your application to the majors. But first, a decision. Level 4. Regional Captain. Here is a fact that surprises everyone outside the industry. Many pilots who are eligible to upgrade to captain don't. Upgrading means going back to the bottom of the captain seniority list. You lose your schedule, your routes, your days off. You go back on reserve, except now you're the one responsible for the airplane. Same crash pad, worse quality of life, more pressure. You upgrade anyway. A week of ground school, a week in the simulator where they kill your engines and fail your hydraulics, then initial operating experience. Real flights, real passengers, a check captain watching everything you do. They hand you a 3rd stripe on each shoulder. Left seat. Captain. The first time you key the mic and say tower, Endeavor 4582, ready for departure, runway 28 left. And the tower clears you. Something lands differently. The airplane moves because you said so. The 76 people behind you are there because you signed the release that says this aircraft is safe to fly. Year 1 captain pay at a regional, $145,000. What's different isn't the money, it's the weight. When a thunderstorm cell is sitting on the approach path and your first officer looks at you, you make the call. Divert, hold, or shoot the approach. The passengers don't know this conversation is happening. They're watching movies. And now you're watching the major airline job boards the way you used to watch the Hobbs meter. Delta, United American. You submit the application and wait. Level 5, Major Airline First Officer. You get the call, United Airlines class date in 4 weeks. Here is what happens to everything you built. It disappears. Your seniority number, the number that controlled your schedule, your routes, your days off, your life, resets to 0. You are the most junior pilot at United Airlines. Seniority number 13,247 of 13,247. Back on reserve, in Newark, possibly back in a crash pad. You are 30 years old with 5,000 hours, and you just started over. First year pay at United, $91,000. Less than you made as a regional captain. You took a pay cut to be here. Every major airline pilot you've ever talked to told you the same thing. Take the pay cut. Get in. Because seniority is everything. It controls what airplane you fly, what routes you get, what days you're off, and when you upgrade to captain. If you ever leave one airline for another, even after 20 years, your number resets to 0. This is why pilots almost never quit a major airline no matter what. The uniform is sharper now, 3 gold stripes instead of black. The airplane is a Boeing 737-800, 162 passengers, 41,000 pounds of fuel, a max takeoff weight, 3 times heavier than the regional jet. The cockpit is wider, the displays are bigger, everything is bigger. Now here's the part that breaks people's brains. Year 6 first officer at Delta makes $289,000 as a co-pilot. Some first officers never upgrade to captain, not because they can't, but because they've bid a perfect schedule on a wide body they love. Upgrading would reset their seniority within the captain list. They'd lose the 777 to Tokyo and get the 737 to Omaha. So they stay. A $317,000 a year co-pilot who flies to London twice a month and is home every weekend. Level 6. Captain. The call comes after 8 years in the right seat. Captain upgrade, Boeing. 737. A week in the Level D simulator. Engine fires on takeoff, hydraulic failures at 200 feet, rejected takeoffs at 140 knots on a contaminated runway. The sim instructor fails things in combinations you didn't think were possible and watches what you do next. You pass. They hand you a 4th stripe, 4 gold bars on each shoulder. The first time you walk through the terminal in the 4-stripe uniform, a kid points at you and says, "That's the pilot." He's right. You're the pilot. You've been flying for 15 years, and this is the first time the job feels like the thing you imagined when you were his age. Year 1 captain at Delta, $426,000. At 80 hours a month, that's roughly $350 an hour of flight time. But the hourly rate isn't the point anymore. The point is that when the gate agent hands you the manifest and says, "Captain, 176 passengers today," you nod and walk up the jet bridge, and everything that happens from this moment until the parking brake is set at the destination is yours. The domestic schedule is the best it's ever been. 3-day trips home by Friday. Your kids know when you're leaving and when you're coming back. That wasn't true for 10 years. But the responsibility never becomes routine. Takeoff, 174,000 pounds, 162 people, accelerating through 150 knots. The V1 callout comes from your first officer. After V1, you're going. Even if an engine explodes, you're going. You practice this in the simulator every 9 months. In 30 years of flying, you might face it once for real. Some captains stay on narrow bodies until 65, but some of them look at the wide-body bid sheet and start thinking about the Pacific. Level 7. The wide-body. You bid for the 777. It takes another 5 years of seniority to hold it. The 777-300ER has a max takeoff weight of 775,000 pounds, roughly the same as 500 loaded pickup trucks. It carries 300 to 400 passengers. The fuel load alone weighs more than an entire 737. Your first trip is New York to London. You push back from the gate at JFK, taxi past 40 other aircraft, and when you rotate off runway 31L, the skyline of Manhattan falls away in the windshield, and you are climbing over the Atlantic Ocean with 340 people behind you. The layover in London is 28 hours, long enough for dinner and a full night's sleep near Heathrow. In the morning, you walk through a park and your phone shows a FaceTime request from your daughter. She's getting ready for school. You talk for 10 minutes, and when she hangs up, you're standing in London and she's in Atlanta, and the distance is not the miles. It's the fact that you've been doing some version of this for 20 years, and it never quite balances. The Pacific routes are the ones that test you. Los Angeles to Tokyo, 11 hours and 30 minutes. When you're off duty, you sleep in a bunk behind the cockpit, a narrow compartment that passengers don't know exists. You land in Tokyo at 4 p.m. local time. Your body says it's midnight. The hotel room is clean and anonymous. You set 2 alarms because you don't trust one. The view is the thing nobody prepares you for. Sunrise over the Atlantic at 39,000 feet. The horizon goes from black to deep blue to orange in a band so clean it looks painted. The Pacific at night, no lights below, for 5 hours. Just the instrument glow and the stars and the faint green line of the northern lights, if you're far enough north. Year 12 Widebody Captain at Delta. Base salary north of $400,000. Add international override, per diem, profit sharing, and the 17% retirement contribution. The total package pushes past $600,000 a year. You are also 55 years old. You've missed more school plays, birthdays, and anniversaries than you've attended. Alpay, the pilots' union, reports 62% of pilots miss over half of their family events. Even now, with a senior captain's schedule, you're gone 10 to 12 nights a month. Your kids grew up thinking that was normal. The top. The top. Check airman. You sit in the right seat of a simulator and watch a captain fly. You're not flying. You're deciding whether this person is safe to carry passengers. If they fail, you write the report. Total compensation: $500,000 to $600,000. On your 65th birthday, it ends. The FAA mandates retirement at 65. No exceptions. Not for health, not for skill, not for desire. The day you turn 65, your medical certificate is void and your career is over. You clean out your locker. The logbook is north of 25,000 hours. You drove a Cessna around a grass strip when you were 19. You flew a 777 across the Pacific at 55. Somewhere there's a kid at a small airport standing next to a Cessna with the engine ticking as it cools. His instructor just got out of the plane. The right seat is empty for the first time. He doesn't know about the $120,000 in debt or the crash pads or the 3 a.m. reserve calls or the seniority number that can erase a decade in an instant. He doesn't know what a 777 cockpit looks like at sunrise over the Atlantic, or what $600,000 a year feels like when you've missed half your kid's life to earn it, or that the FAA will make him stop at 65 no matter what. Right now, he's just sitting in an airplane by himself for the first time, and the right seat is empty and the runway is right there.